Jones. I'm coming to you from the K-State Research and Extension office here in Wichita. And I'm so glad that your awesome teacher or parent has given you one of these kits so that you can have fun learning how to make homemade bread. The kit that you'll be using today is from our 4-H Youth Development Program. Kids who are in 4-H clubs get to learn about anything they're interested in and have lots of fun while they're doing it. If you'd like to learn more about 4-H or join a 4-H club, you can simply call the number that is on the label on your kit and have your parents ask about how you can be a part of 4-H. So if you're using this kit at home, then before we start, I need you to take a moment and gather up a few things that you will need that are not provided in the kit. You will need some vegetable oil, a 1 teaspoon measuring spoon, a 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon, and some cooking spray, and some warm water. The water doesn't need to be steaming hot, just nice and warm to the touch. So, if you have all of these things items, I'm assuming that if you're doing this at school, your teacher will provide these to you at the right time, but if you have these at home and are ready, we need to begin. So we will start first by looking at what you have in your kit. So first of all, there is a list of written instructions. So if you don't understand something that I'm telling you, or you just plain don't want to watch me, here's the written instructions that you can use to use your kit. Next, we have a bag of white flour and a bag of wheat flour. The white flour is in a larger bag than the wheat flour, and if you'll notice, the wheat flour is a little bit darker. I want you to make sure you know the difference between white flour and wheat flour so that we don't get them mixed up and that we use them at the right time. The other things that you have in your kit are, you have 2 little cups like this. You will use 1 to measure flour and 1 to measure water with. You have 2 bags of sugar. You have a bag of yeast and a hand wipe, and I will tell you when it's time to use this. And you also have your little mini loaf pan. This is what your bread will be going into the oven in. And lastly, this is your mixing bowl. This big bag is what you will be putting the ingredients in and mixing from the outside with your fingers. So, if we have all of this stuff out and ready, I will show you what we do first. So first of all, you're going to open your big Ziploc bag and open the bag of white flour. You will take 1 of these little cups and you'll dip it down into this flour, fill it full, fill it a little over full, and then we're going to level it off. You can just use your finger to level it off. It doesn't matter if you spill a little on the counter, no big deal. And then you'll dump that in. And you will dump in 1 bag of sugar. And you will also put in the 1 bag of yeast. And let's talk about this yeast for a minute. It may not look like it, but yeast is actually alive. It's a living organism. And just like you and I, it likes to eat sugar, and it likes a nice warm place to grow. So go ahead and dump your yeast in. And then just kind of mix that all together. Make sure it's mixed together a little bit. And if you can, kind of shake it out of the corners so things don't settle in the corner of the bag. Then you will take your other measuring cup and you will fill it completely full with water. Dump that in the bag. Then be sure you close the top of the bag securely because this is going to be a little wet and sloppy and we don't want to spill it. And you're just going to mix that around with your fingers until all of that dry flour is mixed in with the water and everything looks the same color. Now what we're going to do is we're going to need to let this sit for a while. We need to let it sit for 15 minutes and keep it in someplace warm. I would suggest that you can maybe just put it back inside the paper bag and then just put it in someplace in a warmer spot in your kitchen. And while that is doing its thing for 15 minutes, you can choose to watch a video that I suggest called Meet Me at the Flour Mill. You can find it on YouTube, or the address for it on YouTube is written in your written instructions. Or you can do whatever else your parent or teacher has planned for you, and I will see you back here in 15 minutes. Welcome back. So now that the 15 minutes are up, let's take a look at what our mixture looks like now. You may notice that it has grown bigger and it has some bubbles in it. And if you open up the bag a little and just take a quick smell, it may smell a little bit like bread. So what we just did was a little chemistry experiment. When you mix flour, sugar, yeast, and water together, it's a process called fermentation. And the result of fermentation is carbon dioxide, which is what makes the bubbles. And this is what keeps our bread from being flat and makes it fluffy after it's baked. So now we're ready to add some more things to our mixture. So here's what you need to do next. Open your bag and you will now put in the last bag of sugar that you have left. And then you will add 1 teaspoon of the vegetable oil or canola oil. There's 1 teaspoon. Then you will add another half teaspoon of the oil. Okay. And some more warm water. So go back to your cup that you used for water before. You're going to fill it full again. And dump that in. And then you're going to fill that cup a second time, just half full. Just half full, not the whole thing. All right, so put that in. Close it up again and just mix that a bit. It's just a sloppy mess right now that doesn't look much like bread, but trust me, we'll get there. All right, so the next thing you need to add is the entire bag of wheat flour. Just dump all of that in there. Now close your bag up again and mix with your fingers from the outside of the bag until all of that dry flour is mixed in really good. Sometimes it helps to get the air out of the bag a little bit, makes it easier to mix. You can just put that down on your table and just shove it around until it looks like you have all of that dry flour shown. So if you can look at see here, I have got it mixed so that they really don't see any more dry flour. Everything all looks the same color. So once it looks like that, you're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so now that we have that mixed in and everything looking good, the next thing you're going to do is you will take your little portion cup that you used to measure flour before, and you'll dip that back down in your bag, fill it full again, and then make sure that it's nice and level, okay? And then you'll dump that flour in. And then once again, we're going to mix until all of that dry flour is mixed in good with the rest of the stuff that's in there, and everything looks the same color again. Be sure to close your bag so nothing gets out. And just put it down on the table. If you have a table, it's probably the easiest, and just keep maneuvering all that stuff around. It'll take a while. Your little hand muscles might get a little tired, but eventually we'll get that all mixed in. Sometimes it helps to open the bag back up and shake things around a little and grab the corners and let things fall to the middle. Those are just some things that you can do to make it easier to get the dry stuff mixed in with the wet. Because sometimes in the bag things get a little hot in the corners. And if you get frustrated with the bag, just throw it in a bowl and mix it in the bowl. That would be fine too. So we're getting there. It's starting to look better. Now, we're not quite done yet. I know your hands are getting tired, but at this point we're going to take it out and we're going to look at it in here. And now, we still need to add a little bit more flour. So this time you're going to dip your cup back in there and fill that cup full a second time. Make sure you've leveled it off. But this time, I don't want you to put the whole cup in. I want you to just sprinkle about half of the cup in there, or maybe even a little less than half. So just put some of that in there, and then we're going to mix some more. We're going to keep mixing as we've done before, just to try to make all that white flour disappear. We wish we could say abracadabra and just make it disappear, but nope, we got to do a little work. So just keep at it. It'll all get mixed in eventually. Might have to do some shaking and shoving. Okay, so we're just going to keep mixing. I'm going to open up my bag and do some more shaking. Mine's still looking a little white. I don't know what yours is looking like. Now, if I'm still mixing, because mine still is looking too white, but yours is looking all brown, you can stop mixing. Just take a look at it and see if you've still got some dry looking spots or not. I still have a few, so I need to keep working. I don't know about you all, but my hands are getting a little tired. Okay, it's starting to look. We're getting there. We are getting there. So I think we'll maybe move our camera to a close-up here in just a minute so you can see what mine looks like and compare it to yours. So let's go ahead and get a close-up of this now. Okay, so if you can see this close-up now, if your little ball of dough, when you pull the plastic away, if it comes away from the plastic bag pretty easily and isn't still all wet and sticky, and it pulls away from the bag easily, then yours is done. But if when you look at yours, it's still really sticking to the bag in a lot of spots, then you may want to add just a little bit more of the flour, just a few sprinkles at a time, and mix it in until you get that dough so that it is no longer sticking to the bag. I have mine sticking to the bag just in a few spots, so I'm just going to sprinkle a little flour kind of around where it's sort of sticking to the bag and keep mixing that in, because what we want is to get it to a point where it's really no longer wet and sticky and is easy to get out of the plastic bag. Okay? So once you have your dough to that point, then this is what you will need to do next. We're about ready to take this dough out of the bag, but now is when I want you to either use the hand wipe that we provided for you in the kit, or if you're in your kitchen, you can just go wash your hands off with soap and water. If you're doing it at school or you don't have a sink handy, just take your little hand wipe, and I want you to thoroughly clean these hands, front and back and in between your fingers, until they're all nice and clean. We'll do that first. Okay, so once you have your hands clean, and if your little dough ball has enough flour in it that it's not sticking to the bag, this is what we want you to do next. You can sprinkle a little flour. You need a table or a nice dry surface to put your bread dough on. You can maneuver that around and get a little bit on your hands. Then we're just going to turn that bag inside out and plop that little ball of dough right down there onto that flour. Okay? So now it's time to knead the dough. So using just the palm of your hand, we don't knead with our fingers, just with the palm of your hand. Sometimes it helps to just curl those down. We're just going to press that ball of dough down. So we got it in a little shape about like a personal pan pizza. Then you're going to fold it in half and turn it just a quarter of a turn. And if it's sticking to your table a little, just shove a little flour under there, that's fine. Then you're just going to shove again, like so. And now we might want to get another close-up so people can really see what I'm doing here with the kneading of the dough. So we're going to do this 6 times. So I've done it once, fold it over, quarter turn, that's 2, just shove, that's 3, count with me, don't want to lose count, 4, fold again, 5, fold again, 6. Now, this last time, make it in a little ball again, and then just shove it down and flatten it out a little bit, and just kind of shove it away from the middle towards the sides till you get a bit of again, a sort of a round circle personal pan pizza size piece of dough. Okay? Then what we want you to do is I want you to roll from one side to the other, just like you're rolling a taco shell for a burrito, and just roll it so that it's in a cylinder, like so. And as you can see, there's a seam here. So I want you to put it on the table now with the seam side down on the table. And then take your fingers and press each side down just a little bit. Then I want you to fold those ends under, like so. So now it looks a little bit like a loaf of bread, and leave that sit there while you get your pan ready. Okay, so now we're about ready to put this into our mini loaf pan. But what I need you to do first, if you were doing this at school and it's going in an oven with everybody else's, you might want to put your name in black marker on the bottom so that they know this is your little loaf of bread. But if you're at home, you don't need to worry about that. I just need you to spray the inside of it with the cooking spray. That'll keep the bread from sticking when you try to get out of the pan. If you don't happen to have cooking spray at home, you could probably just put a little bit of your vegetable oil on your fingers and just with your fingers spread it around your pan. That would work just fine too. So now, what I want you to do, I just want you to gently lay your little loaf of bread down in that pan, just like you're putting a baby down in the crib to sleep. Don't flatten it in, just leave it sit there like that. And now you need to leave this sit in a warmer place in your kitchen for 30 minutes and let it rise. It'll rise till it's almost doubled inside, and you'll be able to see it above the top of the pan. And we'll meet you back here after your bread has risen for 30 minutes. Okay, welcome back. So let's take a look at what your bread looks like now after it has risen for 30 minutes. As you can see, it's gotten bigger and it should be over the top of the pan. It's almost doubled in size. So now what you will need to do is to bake it in your oven at 375 degrees for 5 minutes, and then lower the temperature to 350 degrees and bake it for an additional 30 minutes until the loaf looks a deep brown in color. After the 30 minutes, you look at it if it's deep brown in color, and you take it out of the oven, and if you tap it with your finger, it should sound a little hollow, and that means that it's done. So, see you in 30 minutes. All right, so this is what your bread should look like after it comes out of the oven, a nice brown color, and if you thump it a little, it might sound a little hollow, and when it's cool enough to touch, you should just be able to pop it right out of the pan and let it cool off. And I know from personal experience that this tastes really yummy with some peanut butter spread on it or some honey. So thank you for joining me in this activity today, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy eating your bread.